The metallic taste of blood lingered in my mouth, sharp and bitter, as I lay crumpled at the bottom of our basement stairs, my body aching with every shallow breath. Above me, my sister Jessica stood frozen, her hands still outstretched, her face a twisted blend of rage and something darker, perhaps a flicker of satisfaction. The sound of my parents' footsteps thundered down the stairs, heavy with urgency. "What happened here?" My mother's voice cut through the air, sharp and piercing. I noticed, though, that her eyes were fixed on Jessica, not on me, lying there in pain. "She fell," Jessica said quickly, stepping back with a casual shrug. "You know how clumsy she is, always tripping over her own feet." I tried to speak, to tell them the truth that Jessica had pushed me, her hands forceful and deliberate, after I caught her stealing money from my room yet again. But the searing pain in my chest made every word a struggle, each breath feeling like knives slicing into my ribs. I didn't fall, I managed to gasp, my voice weak but desperate. "She pushed me. I have to stop this." My father's voice interrupted, cold and dismissive. "We don't need your dramatic accusations right now, Emma." My name is Emma Mitchell, and at 24 years old, I was still living in my parents' house, navigating the grueling demands of my medical residency. It wasn't the life I'd imagined, but it was practical. Living at home allowed me to focus on my studies without the burden of rent. Jessica, my 26-year-old sister, had moved back home 6 months earlier after her third failed attempt at college. From the moment she returned, the tension between us grew, like a storm brewing on the horizon. What started as snide remarks and petty arguments had escalated into something far more sinister, a darkness that seemed to pulse beneath the surface of our family's carefully curated image. Jessica's resentment toward me had always been there, but now it felt like a living thing, unpredictable and dangerous. Every day in that house felt like walking on a tightrope, never knowing when she'd lash out next. As my mother helped me sit up, a cry of pain escaped my lips, the agony in my chest overwhelming. "I think we need to take her to the hospital," she said, her voice trembling with worry for the first time I could remember. "No hospitals," my father snapped, his tone unyielding. "We'll handle this at home, just like we always do." Those words, "just like always," echoed in my mind, dragging me back to a lifetime of accidents swept under the rug. There was the sprained wrist from when Jessica hurled a book at me during a heated study session, the concussion from when she accidentally slammed a door into my face, and countless other incidents my parents dismissed as my clumsiness or overactive imagination. Each time, they found a way to handle it at home, to protect our family's pristine reputation in our small community. But this time, the pain was different, sharper, deeper, more consuming. I could barely breathe, and a quiet voice inside me whispered that this couldn't be ignored. Despite my father's protests, my mother insisted, her hand resting gently on my shoulder. "She needs a doctor, John." Reluctantly, he agreed, but not without a warning. "Fine," he snapped, his eyes boring into mine. "But Emma, you know what to say, right? You fell. You're clumsy. That's the story." Behind him, Jessica smirked, her confidence unshaken. She was the golden child, untouchable in our parents' eyes, her violence always excused as accidents or misunderstandings, her actions somehow always my fault. At the emergency room, the chaos of the night surrounded us, beeping monitors, hurried footsteps, the hum of voices. My father kept rehearsing the lie with me as we waited. "You were carrying laundry down the stairs, Emma. You missed a step. It's a simple accident, nothing more." But Dr. Sarah Martinez, the ER doctor, wasn't like our family physician, who always accepted my parents' explanations without question. She looked at me directly, her gaze steady and unwavering, ignoring my hovering family. "Tell me what happened," she said softly. "I fell down the stairs," I replied automatically, the practiced lie tasting bitter on my tongue. Her eyes narrowed, a flicker of doubt crossing her face as she glanced at my family, then back to me. "I'd like to examine Emma privately," Dr. Martinez said firmly, her voice leaving no room for argument. "That's not necessary," my father began, but she cut him off sharply. "It's hospital policy for potential trauma cases. Please wait outside." Once they were gone, she helped me onto the examination table, her movements gentle but deliberate. "Now," she said, her voice low and kind, "why don't you tell me what really happened?" Something in her tone, the genuine concern in her eyes, broke through the walls I'd built over years of silence. I wanted to tell her everything about Jessica's push, the stolen money, the years of covered-up injuries, but fear held me back. "I told you I fell," I whispered, my voice trembling. "Emma," she said gently, her eyes searching mine, "I've been an ER doctor for 15 years. I know what fall injuries look like. These bruises on your arms, they're grip marks. Someone held you before you fell." Tears welled in my eyes, but I couldn't speak. She didn't push, instead saying, "Let's get some x-rays. Then we can talk more." The x-rays revealed the brutal truth: 3 broken ribs and a hairline fracture in my wrist. But that wasn't all. Dr. Martinez's face darkened as she pointed to older marks on the images, healing fractures I'd never been told about, injuries buried in my bones from years past. "Emma," she said, her voice steady but grave, "these x-rays tell a story, one that doesn't align with simple accidents or clumsiness. There's a pattern here, and as a mandated reporter, I'm obligated to report suspected abuse." My heart raced, panic rising in my chest. "No, please," I begged, my voice cracking. "You don't understand." "My family," she interrupted gently, her hand resting lightly on mine. "Your family has been covering up abuse, Emma. These injuries go back months, maybe years. You're a medical resident. You know what I'm seeing here." She was right. As I stared at the x-rays through the lens of my medical training, the truth was undeniable. Old fractures, patterns of trauma, it was all there in stark black and white, evidence I could no longer ignore. Doctor Martinez stepped out to make calls, assuring me I was safe with hospital security stationed outside my room. I could hear my father's voice in the hallway, loud and demanding, my mother's attempts to calm him, and Jessica's theatrical sobs, claiming I was making up stories to ruin her. But the x-rays couldn't lie. A specialist, Dr. Thompson, joined us, his expertise in documenting abuse cases evident as he walked me through the scans. "These hairline fractures," he said, pointing to the images, "are defensive injuries, consistent with protecting yourself during an attack." My hands trembled as I faced the evidence of years of abuse, each mark a silent scream I'd buried. How had I convinced myself these were accidents? How had I let my family convince me I was just clumsy? Detective Laura Bennett arrived, her kind eyes and no-nonsense demeanor grounding me. "Take your time," she said, setting up a recording device. "Start from the beginning." So I did. I told her about growing up with Jessica, small pushes, trips, escalating to outright violence, always excused by our parents. I admitted why I hadn't left: my residency, the financial burden, and the hope that if I tried harder, things would change. A commotion in the hallway interrupted us. Jessica's voice rose, shrill and desperate. "You can't keep me from my sister. This is ridiculous. Emma, tell them the truth." A security guard blocked her path, and our eyes met through the doorway. For the first time, I saw fear in her expression. She knew the game was over. The x-rays had exposed every lie, every covered-up attack. Detective Bennett called out, "Miss Mitchell, step back, or we'll add interfering with a police investigation to your charges." Jessica's face crumpled, her pleas fading as our parents dealt with their own unraveling. My father argued with hospital administration, his authority slipping, while my mother sat crying, her world collapsing. Dr. Martinez returned with more scans, revealing an untreated concussion from 3 months earlier when Jessica threw a textbook at my head. "Mom said I just needed to sleep it off," I whispered, the memory flooding back. The detective's pen moved swiftly, documenting every detail. "We'd like to keep you overnight for observation," Dr. Martinez said, her presence a steady anchor. "We're also arranging for you to speak with a counselor." "What happens now?" I asked, looking between her and Detective Bennett. "Now," the detective replied, "we build a case. The x-rays, your statement, and hospital documentation give us enough to proceed with charges against Jessica and potentially your parents for failing to protect you." The weight of those words settled over me: charges, justice, accountability. It felt surreal after years of living in fear, believing I had no voice, no proof. Dr. Martinez assured me, "You don't have to decide everything now. Focus on healing. We'll help you find temporary housing somewhere safe." I thought of Sarah, my best friend from medical school, who'd been urging me to move in with her for months. "I have a friend," I said, hope flickering. "Her spare room is open." Detective Bennett nodded. "That's good. You'll need a support system." 6 months later, I stood in Sarah's kitchen, pouring coffee before my morning shift at the hospital. A newspaper on the counter caught my eye, a small headline detailing Jessica's sentencing, 2 years of probation, mandatory counseling, and a restraining order keeping her away from me. My parents faced consequences too. My father lost his hospital board position, and my mother's social standing crumbled as the truth spread. Both took plea deals, probation, community service, and counseling. Sarah entered, her presence warm and familiar. "You okay?" she asked, noticing my gaze on the newspaper. "Yeah," I said, surprised to mean it. "I am." My phone buzzed, a text from Dr. Martinez, now a mentor guiding my career and healing. "Ready for your presentation today?" I was set to speak to new medical residents about recognizing abuse, using my own x-rays as evidence. "You know," Sarah said, watching me gather my materials, "I'm proud of you, not just for getting out, but for turning your pain into something that helps others." That day, I ran into Jessica in the hospital parking lot, not by accident. She'd been waiting, staying beyond the restraining order's distance. "Emma, please, can we talk?" she called out. I looked at her, really looked. She seemed smaller, less threatening, changed by the counseling she'd been undergoing. I'd heard she'd been diagnosed with mental health issues and was finally getting help. "I can't," I said firmly. "You know about the restraining order." "I know," she said, her voice breaking. "I got your letter." I'd written to her as part of my therapy, not to forgive, but to acknowledge our past and hope for her recovery. "I'm sorry," she said, tears in her eyes. "I know it's not enough, but I'm starting to understand what I did, how much I hurt you." "I'm glad you're getting help," I replied, meaning it. "But I need you to respect my boundaries." She nodded, wiping her eyes, and walked away. Her words didn't erase the past, but they lifted a weight I hadn't realized I was carrying. In the hospital conference room, I set up for my presentation, Dr. Martinez in the front row, her nod a quiet encouragement. The room filled with residents, their faces a mix of curiosity and uncertainty, reminding me of myself not long ago. 6 months ago, I began. Pulling up the first x-ray, I was the patient, not the doctor. These images tell a story, not just of abuse, but of silence, of cover-ups, of family dynamics that normalize violence. I clicked through the scans, explaining each injury, each missed chance for intervention. As medical professionals, we're often the first line of defense, sometimes the only ones who can speak for those silenced. After, a young resident approached, her hands trembling. "Dr. Mitchell, your story helped me understand something about my patient." "Trust your instincts," I told her. "Do what I wish someone had done for me sooner." That evening, I returned to Sarah's house, my home now, feeling exhausted but fulfilled. A letter from my parents waited in the mailbox. They'd been writing, trying to make amends. I opened it. "Dear Emma," my mother wrote, "we saw your interview about the hospital's new abuse prevention protocols. We're deeply sorry for failing you, for not protecting you. Your courage has forced us to face our failures." I folded the letter, their guilt no longer my burden. I was building a new life, one where my voice mattered, where my experiences helped others. The x-rays, now framed in my office, weren't just reminders of trauma, but symbols of survival. They'd spoken louder than any lie, breaking years of silence and giving me back my power. Sarah's note on the counter read, "You're not just surviving, you're thriving." Smiling, I knew she was right. The x-rays had told the truth, and I was finally free. Please feel free to comment below if you liked this. Remember to like and subscribers for more.